Every single human civilization in recorded history believed in gods. Every single one. Separated by oceans, by continents, by thousands of years. Civilizations that never met each other, never traded with each other, never shared a single word of language. All of them looked up at the sky and invented gods. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern so universal, so deeply woven into the human story, that it demands a scientific explanation. Not a theological one, a biological one. Because the question is not whether gods are real. The question is, why did a brain that evolved to survive in the wild develop the capacity for religious belief in the first place? And the answer the science keeps returning to is one of the most surprising discoveries in evolutionary psychology. Your brain was not designed for truth. It was designed for survival. And belief in gods may have been one of the most powerful survival tools the human brain ever developed. To understand how this happened, we need to start not with temples or scriptures, but with the dead. In the animal kingdom, death is met with almost universal indifference. A lion walks past the carcass of its pride mate without a second glance. A chimpanzee mother might carry her dead infant for a few days, but eventually she sets it down and moves on. To almost every animal on Earth, a dead body is simply matter that has lost its usefulness. But at some point in our evolutionary history, something changed. Corpses stopped being abandoned. They became sacred. This shift, this moment when the dead began to matter, is one of the most significant behavioral changes in the history of life on Earth. And the archaeological evidence for it is extraordinary. At a site in northern Spain called the Pit of Bones, archaeologists descended through a deep cave system and navigated through passages barely wide enough for a human body to reach a vertical shaft 13 meters deep. At the bottom, they found the remains of over 28 individuals dating back 400,000 years. And among those ancient bones, a single hand axe, made from rare red quartzite, carefully crafted, showing absolutely no signs of use. It had never cut anything, never been used for hunting or woodwork. It had been deliberately placed in that pit with the dead. Researchers named it Excalibur, and it represents one of the oldest known ritual offerings in human history. 400,000 years ago, long before modern humans existed, something was already treating death as a journey rather than an ending. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, Neanderthals were buried on beds of wildflowers. At Khafsa Cave in Israel, 90,000-year-old human remains were found buried with red ochre and marine shells. If these ancient humans believed death was the absolute end, burying weapons, ornaments, and flowers with the dead was an enormous waste of resources. In a world where making a single stone tool took hours of intense labor, placing it in the ground with a corpse was a massive sacrifice. They did it because they believed the dead had not ceased to exist. They believed the dead had simply moved somewhere else, and needed their tools for the journey. Now here is the biological question at the heart of all of this. Why did humans start thinking this way? What was happening in the ancient brain that produced these beliefs? To understand that, we need to go back to the African savanna. 200,000 years ago, a small group of humans trying to stay alive in a world full of things that could kill them. And this is where the story of gods actually begins. Not in temples, in the grass, in the shadows, in the sound of something moving that you cannot see. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It was built, through millions of years of evolution, to detect patterns in the environment, to connect dots, to find the signal in the noise. Because in the ancient world, detecting patterns was the difference between life and death. You hear a rustle in the tall grass. Is it the wind? Or is it a predator? The human who assumed it was just the wind, and was wrong, got eaten. The human who assumed it was a predator, even when it was just the wind, survived. A false positive costs you nothing. A false negative costs you everything. So over hundreds of thousands of years, natural selection favored the brain that overdetected patterns rather than the brain that underdetected them. Researchers call this the Hyperactive Agency Detection Device. It is the reason you see a face in a cloud. The reason a dark room feels like it is being watched. The reason a strange sound in the night feels like something is out there. Your brain is not being irrational. It is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. But here is where something even more fascinating happened. Running alongside this pattern detection system was another cognitive ability developing at the same time. theory of mind, the ability to model what other beings are thinking, to ask, what does that creature want? What is it going to do next? It was what allowed early humans to navigate complex social relationships, to cooperate, to predict behavior, to read each other. But this system had no off switch. Once your brain develops the ability to attribute intentions to other minds, it starts attributing intentions to everything. When raindrops fell, ancient humans did not see water condensing in the atmosphere. They saw purpose. The sky wanted to wet the earth. When a volcano erupted, the mountain was angry. When the wind howled through the trees, something was expressing its sorrow. Every storm, every drought, every bolt of lightning, all of it felt intentional. All of it felt like a mind. And the moment the ancient brain started asking, what does the storm want? It had taken the first step toward creating a god. Because if the storm has a mind, maybe it can be communicated with. Maybe it can be appeased. Maybe you can do something to influence the outcome. You give a neighbor a gift when you want their help. So you give the rain spirit an offering when you want rain. Worship began not as theology, but as a pragmatic negotiation strategy with the forces of a terrifying world. Now here is where the evolutionary story gets even more interesting. And most people have never heard this part. For decades, historians assumed they knew how civilization started. The story went like this. Humans invented agriculture first. That allowed them to settle down, produce surplus food, and support specialists like priests, which eventually led to the construction of temples and the development of organized religion. Religion in this view was a luxury, something that came after civilization was already established. Then in 1994, a discovery in southeastern Turkey shattered that entire timeline. Göbekli Tepe, a massive stone temple complex dating back 11,500 years. Dozens of T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing 5 meters tall and weighing up to 20 tons, arranged in precise concentric circles. Beautifully carved with reliefs of predatory animals, lions, wild boars, scorpions, snakes. And here is the part that changes everything. It was built entirely by pre-agricultural hunter-gatherers, people with no metal tools, no wheels, no riding, no domesticated animals to help them move stone. They did not even have permanent homes. They were nomadic bands who came together for a single purpose: ritual. And the evidence goes further. Genetic mapping of wild wheat shows that its closest relative still grows on the slopes of mountains just 30 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe. Researchers now believe that the need to feed the massive workforce gathered to build this temple drove the domestication of wheat. Religion did not emerge from agriculture. Agriculture emerged from religion. The need to feed the builders of a temple is what pushed ancient humans to start farming. This single discovery reversed the conventional understanding of how civilization began. Belief in gods did not come after humanity settled down. Humanity settled down because of belief in gods. Now here is the paradox that the science keeps circling back to. If religion was such a powerful survival tool, why does it so often make claims that cannot be verified? The answer is genuinely unsettling. Because the brain that evolved to survive is not the same as a brain that evolved to find truth. Truth is often complicated, uncertain, and uncomfortable. Belief, particularly shared belief, is simple, certain, and deeply comforting. And from evolution's perspective, a comforting belief that motivates action is far more useful than an uncomfortable truth that paralyzes. The hunter who believes the gods will guide his spear today goes hunting. The hunter who believes the universe is random and indifferent to his survival stays in the cave. Evolution rewarded the first hunter, regardless of whether his belief was true. And shared belief did something even more powerful than motivate individuals. It bonded groups. As human communities grew larger, keeping order became increasingly difficult. In a small band of 30 hunter-gatherers, everyone knew everyone. If someone stole or refused to contribute, the whole group knew immediately. But as communities expanded, people had to interact with strangers. Without face-to-face accountability, the incentive to cheat skyrocketed. Religion solved this with one elegant invention: the all-seeing God. If you stole from a neighbor when no one was watching, you might escape human justice. But you could not hide from the gods. The gods saw everything, and the gods kept score. This belief acted as a psychological surveillance system, forcing individuals to behave cooperatively even when completely alone. The tribe that believed in a watching God cooperated more reliably, shared food more generously, and fought together more courageously. In the brutal competition of the ancient world, the cooperative group survived. The selfish group did not. There is one more piece that makes the whole picture complete: the neuroscience. Neuroimaging studies show that intense prayer and meditation deactivate the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for anxiety and fear. It induces genuine measurable calm. And communal ritual, group chanting, synchronized movement, shared ceremony, triggers endorphins and oxytocin, the same chemicals released during physical bonding between family members. Shared religious practice was a biological technology for creating trust between strangers. It chemically made unrelated people feel like siblings. And that bond was what allowed early humans to build groups large enough to construct cities and eventually dominate the planet. So why did humans invent gods? Because a brain wired to detect invisible agents, combined with the ability to model other minds, inevitably produced the concept of intentional supernatural forces. Because shared belief in those forces created the social trust that allowed human groups to cooperate at scales no other species could match. Because Göbekli Tepe proves that religion came before civilization, not after it. And because the awareness of death, that uniquely human burden, demanded an answer that reason alone could not yet provide. But here is the part that should stop you cold. The ancient software is still running. Right now, today, billions of people who have never set foot in a temple still negotiate with invisible forces. We knock on wood to avoid jinxing something good. We avoid the number 13. We will not open an umbrella indoors. We throw spilled salt over our left shoulder. We touch a specific object before something important. We will not walk under a ladder. We make a wish before blowing out birthday candles. We believe in signs, in timing, in luck. Not because we are irrational. Because we are human. And the human brain, built on millions of years of survival, still reaches instinctively for the same tool it has always reached for. The feeling that something out there is paying attention. Long before the first temple was built, ancient humans looked up at the sky and asked whether anyone was looking back. That question never disappeared, because it was never just a question about the sky. It was a question the brain could not stop asking. And no matter how far we travel, it follows us. Quiet, persistent, ancient. If this video changed how you think about the human mind, hit the like button. Share it with someone who has never thought about religion this way. Subscribe to Better Instincts.